I want to talk about Egyptian priests, and I want to talk about the Egyptian priests and the Illuminati. And the reason why this subject matter came up to me, I was teaching in high school, alternative high school, and my students found out that I was a kappa and that I was in the Masonic Lodge. I actually brought this stuff to them. They kept referring to a video or certain videos or things that they get off the internet saying that the kappas and the Qs and the AKAs and Greek letter fraternities, Jay-Z and Beyonce, and all of these people were members of the Illuminati, and that we had secret codes, and this is what we had to do to get in the fraternity or sorority or the Masonic order. And I just found it fascinating. I found it laughable. And so, but they were just so insistent on it. And this is why research is so important. Now, I saw one of the videos, it was circulating in the barbershops here in Detroit, and I saw it, and I was able to, first thing I said to the guy who gave me the video, I said, who produced it? I said, if you show me who produced the video, who's putting up the money to produce this propaganda, then I can show you that they can steer the message. So I tried to talk to my students, and I brought my materials to class, but some of them, you know, they ain't trying to hear it. But everything goes back to the Egyptian priest. Here you have a priesthood, and it had different classifications of the priest. Now, first of all, let me give you a timeline of how these Egyptian priests ruled in Africa. And then, once you see that the first Roman or first Greek historian, Herodotus, who was called the father of history, when he went into Africa, he went to interview the priest. And when he did this was at the end of over 4,000 years. And the priests were just telling them what they knew, or what does this temple mean, and what does these symbols mean. And this stuff is so old and so deep. And what happens is that people come in, they don't understand hieroglyphics, and you had different temples and the meanings and stuff change over 4,000. That's a long time. And so people just start writing down and doing anything they want to do, and then all of a sudden it gets into Europe, and the Illuminati start. Now, is there evil in the world? Yes. Are there evil people who get together and conspire to take over governments and organizations? Yes. I even think that this new bill that President Barack Obama is my friend. I love him. But this new bill that he signed on December the 31st, the National Defense Act, where they could just snatch anybody off the street and put them in a jail cell and deny them their civil and human liberties. I think that some of that was the result of front people, you know, people who want to conspire, and people. So I'm not saying that those things don't exist, but people are deeply resent when people keep referring to the African philosophy and religion, and they just put their spin on it, and then they pawn it off on us as some kind of conspiratorial theory, when in fact I want to prove to you, or I want to examine the evidence to show that this stuff is deep and this stuff is hard to decipher. So there's a lot of confusion about Jay-Z, Beyonce being in the Black Illuminati. There are rumors afloat that many super rap stars are involved in secret societies. And this talk even extends, obviously, to our political and social world. I mean, you had the assassination of John F. Kennedy, the illegal drug trafficking in Iran, the 9/11 conspiracy, the New World Order, underground military bases. I believe we have those. Freemasonry, AKA Delta, Sigma, Omega, Kappa Alpha Psi, And don't forget about the white fraternities, the Skull and Bones at Yale University. And don't forget about the mind control, psychotropic drugs, Lil Wayne, Snoop Doggy Dogg, and the rest of the bunch. I mean, all of them are involved in this Illuminati conspiracy, and people want to take over the world. Like I said, evil is nothing new. Ain't nobody recreating evil. It's going to be here. Deal with it. You know, just understand that. And people do get in back rooms, and I make a distinction between what's secret and what's private. Okay, I can't log into your Facebook account or your bank account. It's not secret. It's private. So people say secret, it means somehow clandestine, and there is, you know, but private is probably a better word. And it's no different than organizations that you have to be invited to join. When I was invited to join the Masons, I was living in upstate New York, and wasn't a lot of blacks up there. I was a prison chaplain. I went down to the mall, and I guess there's some black. They had a lot of blacks in the military base, and I was just walking around in the mall. As a matter of fact, I was sitting down minding my own business, eating lunch, and a brother came up to me. He was from the military base, and I'd never seen him before in my life, and he said, Reverend Robinson, can I talk to you? And I knew he was from the military base. I said, sure. And he invited me. He's the one that said, you know, that we had the Masonic Lodge at the military base, Pioneer Lodge 103. And Masons don't go around advertising themselves. You'll know a Mason by their behavior. It's no different than me looking out my window, and I don't know some of my neighbors, but I see that here's a black guy or a woman, and they're taking care of their kids. You know, they're doing more than they're taking their kids to school in the morning. They're making sure that they're clothed. They're making sure that they're fed. I don't know their name. Do I have to know their name? But they're taking care of business. They're not advertising. They're not saying I'm a good parent, but you'll know a good parent. Why do you have to advertise when you're doing something good? So, anyway, I wanted to first talk about, I wanted to show just how old the Egyptian priesthood goes back. Now let's look at the timeline, okay? Before there were any Greeks in the world, before there were any Romans in the world, before there were even Arabs in the world, we were in the world, African people, all by ourselves. It's hard for us to put our minds around that concept. And it's been a long, and we were in the world for a long time. As a matter of fact, more than half of history had already been passed. When we talk about recorded history, it had already been passed before the first Arab came into Africa, and the first Greek, and the first Roman. More than half of African history was over. The pre-dynastic period lasted for about 4,000 years, okay? The pre-dynastic lasted for 392 years. The early dynastic period lasted for 519. Now you get your little calculator and you start adding this up, because that's what I did. You got the pre-dynastic period lasted for 392 years. The early dynastic period lasted for 519 years. The old dynastic kingdom, and these were just successive kingdoms, lasted for 434 years. The first intermediate period lasted for 340 years. The middle kingdom lasted for 366 years. The second intermediate kingdom lasted for 163 years. The new kingdom lasted for 867 years. The post-kingdom lasted for 186 years. This is before the Persians came into Africa to rule, then came the Greek rule, then came the Roman rule. So when the Greeks and Romans came into Africa, they had no history, they had no religion, they had no civilization. And when the ancient Egyptian priests began to interpret for them what they were observing, Africa had already existed for 4,000 years. That's how deep this stuff is. So when you start talking about Jay-Z and Illuminati and all this kind of stuff, please, I mean, you know, let's just take a big breath. This is why Malcolm X used to say, when they took you out of Africa, you lost your mind. I mean, this is what he's really saying. And it was just so tragic to see my people, these young people, talking all this nonsense. But when you have the internet, there's a whole lot of propaganda, a lot of nonsense that's being pawned off as scholarship, when in fact it is nothing but a denigrating ancient African thought and religion. And the ancient Africans, they didn't never intend, you know, all of it, and this stuff is not hard to find. They put inscriptions on their funeral tombs. Their tombs. The first evidence we have of what their civilization was about, they didn't even call it a religion. But the first evidence that we had was we had to look at their tombs. They had wooden tombs, I mean wooden boxes that they buried their dead. They learned how to mummify the body, and then they started to put these inscriptions on there, just like we do when we go and bury people. When we say, here lies Carl Robinson, he was born, you know, and Carl is this and Carl is that. There's no difference. When we learn how to mummify the body, so we have evidence. You don't have to go looking for it. And so when these Greeks and Romans and foreigners came into Africa, they didn't know what they were looking at. And they had many interpretations. And you got to remember, Africa was a large continent. It's just like you have a whole bunch of churches, and you go to one church and they say they emphasize the Holy Spirit, the other church they emphasize Jesus, and the other church they emphasize Christ, and the other church they emphasize something else. That's the way you have, and you got to just kind of just knit these things together. So, and because of modern technology, we know more about ancient Africa and ancient civilization. Because of modern technology, we know more about the early world than we do now. Archaeology is a new kid on the block. It just came into existence probably in the 19th century. So now that we have technology, we can go back and unearth some of these artifacts and unearth some of these facts of how these people live. Now we can put into perspective what they were saying. So in summary, this is what E.A. Budge, now I'm telling you, just, I can't even find this on the internet. I bought this book for 25 cents at seminary library here in Detroit. I can't even find it, I can't find it online. I can't find it in Amazon. 25 cents. This is called Osiris and the Egyptian Resurrection by E.A. Willis Budge. He's the same author, and he got his money from Rothschild. It's no big deal. He was the curator of the British Museum. In the 18th century, the British went into Africa, and they got all this information. And this is one of the best books. I mean, this is the book that Sheikh Anta Diop uses. This is the best translation. And I bought it for 25 cents. You can't even find it on the internet. Now, go figure that out. Now you want that, call me, and I may sell it to you. I can copy that for you. It's a very good book. So all I'm saying is that the text makes it quite clear in that book that the Egyptians believed in a dual soul, the Ka and the Ba. They believed that in order for the soul to live, you have to keep feeding it. That's why in the church, we eat the bread and we drink the wine. We do it in remembrance of Jesus. And that is an old, and it's all over the tombs and all over the inscriptions all over Africa. This is where our religion comes from. I don't care if you're Presbyterian, I don't care if you're Baptist, I don't care if you're Jewish, I don't care if you're Islam. All of it comes out of the same rudimentary structure. And this stuff is so old. It is so old. And to have people making videos and stuff that throw up a lot of symbols, and they don't know what they're even looking at. Now, and next I want to deal with the Masonic Lodge, because the Masonic Lodge didn't come into being until King Solomon. This was 2,000, 3,000 years before King Solomon even got on the face of the earth. And you talking about you can only trace the Masonic Lodge back to King Solomon. This stuff is older than King Solomon. So you can see just how old this stuff is. So my point is this. You know, there's a light in the world. There's a light in this world. This is goodness, light, all right? And you can hide it. You can put it under your, you can hide, you can kind of confiscate it. But guess what? This light ain't going to go out, Evil is not going to put this light out, You can, like I said, you can hide it. You can put it under a bushel. You can snuff it out. But it's going to keep on rising. It's going to keep on rising. And good is more powerful than evil. And right is more sturdier than wrong. And so I think that as we do our research and as we reflect on our own personal lives, take care of your kids. Do simple things. Feed your kids. Take care of your mom and dad. Bury your dead. Do something good for somebody. Keep those things simple. If you look at the only workshop that Jesus did, he said, look, if you got 2 coats and you see somebody walking down the street and they ain't got a coat, give them one of your coats. Do you really need a religion? Do you really need to sing praises to God to figure that out? Is it that difficult? No. It's that simple. So just keep that in perspective. And when I come back, I want to talk about the Egyptian mystery religion. It won't take me long to go through that. But they had a system, and that's where all the stuff about the Illuminati comes from. So that's all I want to say today. It's just, I was just excited about getting this Illuminati and this Freemasonry and the Egyptian priests. Have some respect for them. Remember when Jesus' mother was born, the first thing she did, she took her child to the temple, to the Egyptian priests. This stuff is old. This stuff is deep. This stuff is good. This stuff is worthy for all of us to dig into and just clean up our belief system. Let's clean up our faith. Let's rekindle our hope. And let's try to be better neighbors to one another.